Hey YouTube, Chris here again with the PQMTB channel. I'm going to share a tip with you that I saw on another YouTube video, but it seems to be not too common or well-known trick, and it's going to get your Magura levers feeling awesome for your brake setup. So as some background, I was having a little bit of issue with my rear brake. I was going down a long descent, probably about 1,000-foot vertical, and it just started getting squishier and squishier and squishier. And my first thought was, well, it's either a bad bleed, but I did bleed them recently, or it's worn pads. So I got new pads, and it partly fixed the issue. So my first thought was, okay, maybe the pads being super worn, they were a pretty good amount past the wear limit, exacerbated this issue. But then I was on a ride yesterday and was having, again, the levers getting squishy after a modest descent, just like 100 or 150 feet. And so I figured that maybe there was air somewhere in the lever here, that in the normal position it was moving up to where it's then in sort of the brake line path, and it's causing, squishy lever feel. Because I would then put the bike up on its back tire, and the air might move somewhere here towards the reservoir, and it would then get firm when I pumped the brake. So it was a really weird issue, and my friend Justin told me about this trick that I'm going to share with you now to get your levers feeling great. So all you need is your T25 to open up the bleed port, one of your Magura syringes with the hole towards the top. I had drilled this one at one point. I think the new ones come with the hole at the 30 mil mark. Doesn't really matter. About 10 mils of fluid in there. Just your Magura brake fluid, and that's pretty much it. So let me get you set up on a tripod. Okay, you're on the tripod. I've got my brake lever rotated pretty close to horizontal. I don't think it's too picky about exact angle. You don't need to be getting it dialed. And I've got the bleed port open. I'm gonna take my syringe. I'm gonna squeeze it so that most of the air is out of there. Went fast at the end. I'm gonna leave a little bit of air in there just because it makes it easier. Not a whole lot though. I'm gonna install it into my lever. Standard procedure. Now, this, I guess you'd call this a vacuum bleed sort of procedure. So I'm going to pull a vacuum in this piston, or this syringe, until I get it up to that vent hole, and then it vents back in. So I've done this a few times, so I probably won't get much air out, but the first few times I got a ton of air out, and I'll show you this on the front brake too, which I have not done yet. So I'm gonna hold it. I'm gonna slowly start pulling a vacuum. It's building there. Yeah, I'm not getting anything out now. And sometimes it's hard, you might have to reposition your hand. Make sure you don't yank it out of the brake lever. Yeah, that one's getting tricky. I'm gonna show you what it looks like when you do it on a brake you haven't done yet. Hopefully my front brake, we get some bubbles out too. All right, we are now set up at the front brake side. I've got it again level and the bleed screw out. I could already see that the oil level when I took the bleed screw out was a little bit low, so I just dripped a few drops of oil from the syringe into this opening to make sure I get a good seal and to get enough or as much air out of it initially as we can. And this is a process you might have to do 3 or 4 times if there's a lot of air in your brake. But I've got you in fairly close here, just a little bit. Hopefully you can see all the air that should come out. I'm expecting a good amount. Maybe not too much. It was easier to pull that time, so it must have got some, but I could see the old oil that was a little bit dirty in there. It was probably a few months ago that I bled my brakes. Okay, I'm gonna do this once again, just to be extra sure. So make sure you cover that hole when you pull your syringe out. And hopefully we get some air out. Let's see. Oh, there's some bubbles. Oh, it's hard to pull. Oh yeah, there we go. There they come. Sometimes it's good to do a nice slow pull. You don't want to just yank on it. There we go. Got some good bubbles out. There they come. Nice. And then you vent it. There it goes. And I'm gonna repeat that a couple times. All right, just did it once more. Didn't see any more bubbles come out, so I think I got most of them on that last pull. And just to be clear on this whole setup, the brake calipers are still closed. Everything is normal there. I've still got my pads in. So we are just opening the system at the top and pulling a vacuum here. What that does is it helps all the bubbles expand It's like when you open a can of soda and all the bubbles come out of solution. That's essentially what we're doing here. We're dropping the pressure in the system to force those bubbles to expand out of solution, and then that makes an easier path for them to escape as those bubbles grow and come through the lines. So it gets a really good bleed. Let me finish this off and then I'll show you how they feel. Last thing, of course, you gotta put your bleed screw back in. And remember that this is not a high torque item. This is just a small screw. It's made of their same carbotexture material. It's half a Newton meter. And if you understand things better like I do in imperial units, it's about 4 inch-pounds. So like, literally I'm just on the top of the screwdriver, just barely doing that. It's not tight. All right, obviously it's hard to convey lever feel in a video, but yeah. Well, it's pretty bitey for just back brake. If I had 3 hands, I'd stomp on both brakes, but I don't. Swap hands. Oh, yeah, they bite now. Give this procedure a go. You should find that your brakes feel a lot better.